Welcome back to Turn Down for What, your source for EV news and updates. Like and subscribe for more content like this episode. Let's dive on in.
Welcome back to Turn Down for What? Another day.
Another episode.
And we're back. Hey, last week I said we'd be here this week, and guess what? It's 2 weeks in a row that we're on time. How about that?
Check us out, man. Growing up, we are adulting. We're
trying to be big boys and be responsible and keep content coming. So here we exist, and we actually have a good one for everyone today that's listening. Interesting happenings have occurred in the EV space, specific to Tesla in the last couple weeks, and wanted to have a discussion today and bring on our really good friend Justin, aka Bearded Tesla. So, welcome back to the podcast. I think both times we had you on, you were driving your Cybertruck from the edge of the earth and back. And so you were driving both times. So this time we actually have you sitting in front of a computer and talking to us today. But welcome back to the podcast.
Yeah, thanks so much.
It's good to show that you do not live out of your Cybertruck.
Yeah.
Sometimes it feels like it, but no, I do not.
And for those who might have joined us in the last few months, go back like 6 months ago, roughly, and tune into the episodes that we had where Justin took his Cybertruck from, it was Florida, like South Florida, all the way to the Arctic Circle. Trekked, how many miles was it total?
13,000 miles round trip, 4 weeks.
13,000 miles. I thought I was a big boy for driving 1,000 with my new truck I got last week. And Chris was a big boy for driving 3,000 with his new truck. And here we exist. You did a 13,000 mile road trip. That's insane. But I mean, some of the imagery and stuff that came out of that trip was legendary. I mean, that was such an epic trip. It'd be just a bucket list trip just to get the boys together. Let's all TDFW. Let's go drive to the Arctic Circle again. Go check out all the Justin Chargers that got put in.
Yeah, we actually just a couple days ago, the first major, I guess, trek has been completed with. It was a Hyundai, was just done. So it's nice to see the Chargers getting used on some adventures.
That's remarkable.
So cool. Anyways, that's not the reason that we're chatting today. But if you hadn't, go back onto our channel and watch that content, and also follow Bearded Tesla, because there's also all sorts of awesome content on all of the platforms that you have done and that you will do. So, Chris, I'll let you introduce our topic today, and we'll get kicked off.
Yeah, so I'll start out and kind of talk about one of our co-hosts, Martin Meek, is out here in California from Kansas with his wife, and they came out to San Diego for a wedding, then drove up from San Diego yesterday to the Bay Area, and he had just gotten done rebuilding a Tesla Model S, and this is a 10-year-old 2015 Tesla Model S, and it still had free supercharging. Drove it all the way across the country and for free, which is, how amazing is that? And so I really wanted him to connect, because he's starting to get into rebuilding these Teslas, and I really wanted him to connect with Unplugged Performance up here in the Bay Area, who does a lot of like suspension work and a lot of aftermarket stuff, and then I'm trying to get them to change and kind of swap ideas, because they're a big supporter of NorCal EVs up here, and want to get them into the world of like FDRS and Forescan, and being able to make some changes and things for the Mach-E and for the Ford Lightning. There's just not a lot of places that do it. Like, we know the Ford software updates exist in FDRS, and oftentimes people can't get it and don't have it. And with FDRS, these softwares are just sitting there on servers. You can pull them down and install them. Things like Blue Cruise 1.4. And we got to talking about the differences between, like, he's using autopilot and came across the country on autopilot, which isn't even FSD. But he was just talking about how remarkable it was, and how it was, even stronger for a 10-year-old software, even stronger than what Blue Cruise is today. And it was just a really great conversation. And Unplugged Performance is right down the street from the Tesla factory where this Model S was built. And I'm like, dude, 10 years later, and this Model S is back home. And so it was super cool. I got to take him down to the Tesla factory with his Model S. This is a horrible picture of it. But that is, I assure you, a 15-year-old Model S. I should have got a better picture of the actual car. But it was just cool to bring it there to the Tesla factory. This is actually, ironically enough, the exact spot where I got to meet up with Justin and the whole team, and Tesla Tino and his wife. And I got to bring my son and Justin. Thank you for that. That was an amazing experience for my son to get to see your two Cybertrucks. And then, yeah, I was literally this exact spot. So the whole conversation started me thinking about Justin, man, and about like being here with him and FSD and what you just did, with the RoboTaxi. It's not really Cybercab because it's not that platform yet, but the RoboTaxi stuff that you did. And then while I was there, I took him to go see Optimus because they don't have Optimi. They don't have any Optimus. What's the word on that, Justin? What's the official name for the multiple Optimus?
I don't know what we're going to land on, but I always called it Prius would be Prii for plural, so Optimus should be Optimi, but I don't know.
Yeah. So I, got us. There's none of these in Kansas. So
none of those in Tennessee either.
Yeah.
Just come say hi to Chris.
So that was really cool. And then just for fun, we then, you can't come all this way and then not go to San Francisco, which is like the home of Waymo. So everywhere we looked, Waymos all over the place, like Waymo's following Waymo's sitting on the side of the road, Waymo's going on. And his wife had never seen these. So there's like, there's nobody in the passenger seat. I mean, all this typical kind of reactions, and we got into the conversation about, well, what's the difference between Waymo and the Cybertaxi? She had thought Tesla was the only one doing it. And we kind of got into that whole conversation. And then funny enough, I'll show you this clip here. This is us taking.
Oh my, look at that.
There we go.
Chris, are you sure?
I'm about to be sure. I don't have any choice now. I'm in.
So we took the Lightning down Lombard Street, and once you're there, man, you're on it. So there's only one way down. You're not going the other direction. So windiest, skinniest. Now this would have been way easier, by the way, Justin, in your Cybertruck with the 4-wheel steer. So I'm, I got $1 million houses around me and landscaping.
It's deceptive. You don't realize how narrow that street is on those turns. I've only been on it once, and it was. I was like, "Whoa, this is way tighter than I expected."
Yeah,
Chris, you didn't curb it at all.
No, I did not. But I was looking really carefully and off my window, and obviously I couldn't be recording while doing this. So Martin records it. He's my spotter on the right. He's making sure I don't take out any shrubbery here. And so for those that wonder, you can get a Lightning down Lombard Street. I highly advise a spotter with you. This is as close as I'm going to get to off-roading. You have a spotter for off-roading. And we're just wondering, we're like, man, how the heck do you move into these houses? Like, how do you get a moving truck here? Like, are you just paying people to haul your stuff? Like,
you hike up. Yeah.
I guess if you've got the money to live on Lombard Street, you got the money to pay movers to haul this stuff up. So yeah, that was that. And then so after Lombard Street, we're like, all right, well, let's get you to the Golden Gate Bridge. And so we drove across the Golden Gate Bridge, and there's a spot in Marin County where you can get these epic shots. And I'm like, well, let's capture this moment, Martin, like all the way from Kansas. Let's get us with the Lightning in front of the Golden Gate Bridge. Like, you've gone now from Kansas to California, all the way to the coast. So here is the awesome shot in front of the Golden Gate Bridge. Couldn't see a dang thing, man. It's the closest we could get is on Apple Maps. As you're driving over the Golden Gate Bridge, it zooms in and shows this awesome picture of like the bridge and the red spires and everything. And that's as good as you could get. I mean, you just, summertime in San Francisco, 55 degrees, completely fogged in. It's hard to do justice to it, but if you look at the headlight, like, you can see the fog. I mean, it was just rolling. There's fog horns in the background going off. I mean, it was nuts. So yeah, that kind of but that whole adventure, the whole thing of it, just him doing, using autopilot and seeing the factory and seeing all the Waymos and seeing San Francisco, it was like, man, there's a big debate here over, these different ADAS systems, automated driving, and what better way to talk about it than bring Justin on, who's, one of the few people who have actually, I mean, a lot of people have done FSD, myself included, but have not actually sat in a RoboTaxi. Is it RoboTaxi or RoboCab? Have they decided?
RoboTaxi, and then it'll be CyberCab.
Mm.
It took me a while to get those straight.
Yeah. So, man, share with us, man, because I just think it's such an epic thing that a moment in time and everything from the app, and like, tell us the story. How did it happen? How did you get to do this? Please, like, share with the audience.
Yeah. So earlier this year, there was a lot of talk about this June launch, and of course, Elon time is not always on time. He's pretty optimistic with his timelines, which is I'm guilty of myself quite often. My wife calls it just in time. And
Just in time. That's funny, actually.
Yeah. So 15 minutes is like 4 hours, however the conversion works.
I tell my
Made it
wife,
just in time.
I'll be home in 5, and she's like, "Yeah, that's 45 from now." But yeah,
Yeah. So that's always been kind of a thing. This is no different. And at the beginning of the year, there's a lot of talk about, is this actually going to happen? The thing that caught me was how many employees were jumping in on this. That doesn't normally happen. And there was a lot of excitement around this. And the work that they're doing, that the autonomous team at Tesla is doing, is incredible. And I believe. And so I put my money where my mouth is, made a bet with a pretty vocal doubter of this. And that kind of set things in motion. So unfortunately, I didn't directly get invited for the event from Tesla. It was like, I don't know what the final count is, like 14 people in the entire world got invited, right? So super exclusive. This is very traditional automotive. Bring in some people to help hype, to film it, encourage the filming, but make sure you're doing your best to control the narrative, right? That's very typical. Everybody does this. But what surprised me was the +1 or the passenger wasn't a designated person. So you've probably seen for yourself, a lot of people have had a chance and an opportunity to ride in this thing to the graces of people who have access to the app, which is really cool. And I was invited by 2 people to come experience it with them. So, booked a friggin' $1,000 flight to make this happen real quick. But that is kind of how this all started. And what's interesting is a storm was rolling in, the thing was delayed. And we were thinking, okay, now that the storm comes, they're probably going to delay it again. They launched RoboTaxi during the middle of a storm, basically. So I think that's a fun little nugget there that is like a testament to their, I guess, confidence in the system. The thing has the best way to explain RoboTaxi as it sits today is, if you have a hardware 4 car and you have FSD, it is going to feel extremely familiar. It's going to act very similar with some differences. It is, you would get in that car and be like, oh, this is like my car. The difference is there's some areas where my car will kind of be cautious or hesitate a little bit, especially when like turning into traffic, whether it's right or an unprotected left. RoboTaxi has the confidence there that like my car lacks with its software. So it's not that my car won't take the turn. It's just very maybe go. Okay, then it goes. This thing just, when it's ready, it's going. And we really tried to get the thing to fail. We tried to put it through some complicated routes and make it do complicated things. We only got a couple of things to really happen, and one of those had to do with the buttons that you had access to. So pull over. We did it like right towards the end of the trip. And in doing so, unfortunately, when you hit end trip, The thing's now in FSD roulette. And that's exactly what happened. So it triggered that the trip was over before it finished. And then we were on FSD roulette, just wherever it was going. And, calling support to help with that, to bring the car back to a location.
So how did that work? How do you contact? Because that was actually one of the questions that happened last night. Waymo has had recently here in San Francisco some interesting occasions. One of them, it was dropping off. In fact, when we went to dinner, there was a couple Waymos that dropped off a bunch of I don't know, kids to me, because I'm a middle-aged man, but young adults that were there to party. And there was one just a couple days ago where they were dropping them off at a hotel, and the hotel had one of those like roundabout driveways, and the Waymo got confused and just was doing loops, and they couldn't get out of it, right? And so that was her question, was like, what do you do? So in the Tesla, how do you initiate that? Because we've seen the pictures of the team and we know they're monitoring it. How do you initiate that? What was that like?
In the early, a couple of facts. The early versions of RoboTaxi are human supervised, correct?
It's semantics. I don't know how to answer that question perfectly. There's a safety observer in the passenger seat, but there's nobody actively controlling the vehicle or in a position where they can actively take over in a moment. So if something were to happen, it would have to be teleconnected, which is not something that you can do with the lag time remotely to operate this thing full time. So just like with Waymo, if it gets into a situation, somebody can dial into the car remotely and kind of take over to operate the vehicle through whatever that obstacle is. In the RoboTaxi, it's all a support button. So you can hit support in the back screen, and that connects you with an operator that can diagnose what the problem is and help you, whatever that is. Or hey, we just want to go back to our last location. Can you look that up? I can't remember what that location was. Then, they go do their thing, and then they send that address to the car. So it can do a number of really cool things. It's very similar to Waymo. You need help, you dial in, and then somebody will help in that situation.
So what happened in your situation? How did you initiate the call? So on the back screen where you would normally see a YouTube and whatnot, I assume that screen is the same size. It looks exactly like the normal Model Y screen. And is there a button or something that you are doing?
Yeah. On there's a button that says support. There's a couple of buttons you can press, pull over and support, really, if I remember right. Those are the two main ones. So it's just literally just tap the support button, and then it connects you to the support team.
And then they're coming over the audio almost like a phone call. And then you tell them what happened. And then are they able to kind of reinitialize, hey, this is the correct destination?
Yep. It's just on my phone, if I'm looking at an address of a place I want to go, I can send that to the car. Same thing, right? They're just doing it, in a whatever backdoor way.
So something to kind of zoom out and talk about just a little bit as we're talking about the technicals, because some people may not really realize we just brought up Waymo and we brought up Tesla full self-drive and this whole idea of these self-driving vehicles. There's two fundamental differences between the technologies that is what's kind of currently under debate, and something that we'll talk about today. You have the Waymo system, which is very heavily LiDAR, camera. It's very heavily sensor-based, where it's utilizing a bunch of different sensors and radar, like radar and LiDAR, to identify what's around you and make decisions based on those inputs. What Tesla's done is they've taken their full self-drive, and they're taking more of a no LiDAR, it's cameras, and then an AI neural net to make educated decisions on behalf of the driver. And so it's a different perspective on the execution. So Waymo's actually been around for a few years doing this with cameras and LiDAR, which a lot like the Ford Blue Cruise and Super Cruise, and a lot of these things are built on those LiDAR, where it's understanding what's around you and making decisions accordingly. What Tesla's done with their RoboTaxi and Cybercab and the future of of that space has been they're using cameras and then using AI to sit there and drive and basically make those educated decisions on the back end. And so there's been a little bit of controversy on that, but just understand that those systems aren't the same, and it's a question of which one works better. It's a fundamental difference in the execution of this AI or this technology, where Tesla's taking a much more advanced approach, and I think Waymo's taking a much more conservative approach. But arguably, what you see is in those LiDAR sister situations, it's much more limited on its functionality, where if you can really nail this a camera with AI brain system, it's much more versatile. Where, as Elon's announcing, they're like Teslas are coming off the factory line and driving themselves to their destination because they are understanding where they need to go, why they need to go there, and reading the road in real time and able to get from point A to point B. Much more sophisticated. But also, it's why Tesla is so far ahead with even full self-drive compared to Super Cruise and Blue Cruise. It's so far ahead because these technologies are much more advanced. It's just, I think, there's a lot more controversy around that. And maybe we can talk about that for a second.
Yeah, I think it cannot be ignored. They are very two different approaches to the same problem, and Waymo, of course, is packed with LiDAR, which does a really good job of identifying things in a very detailed way. It does have drawbacks, of course. Predominantly is cost of all of this hardware. Next being the time it takes to process all of that data. Full self-driving or RoboTaxi, on the other hand, is using camera-based system with no LiDAR, no radar. It's just using vision to figure all of this out. That obviously has its drawbacks too. They both have pros and cons. And as it sits today, there is one leader in customer autonomous rides, and that is Waymo. There's no question about that. Waymo is operating in a number of cities. They just opened up in Atlanta, which that one kind of scares me. I know San Francisco seems kind of scary. Some of these California cities seem like, wow, that sounds incredible, but they're very grid type cities. Atlanta is like nothing else out there. That's going to be really interesting to watch. The most important thing about all of this is we need to be advancing rapidly in this space. And that requires more than one player. And that requires more than one approach also, I argue. So we have a number of operators that are using LiDAR, and we have one that's using vision. So we have a couple of approaches. We have tons of money being poured into this space. We're in a good spot for this stuff to become a reality everywhere. But there are a lot of differences, and there's a lot of opinions. Unfortunately, my opinion is those opinions are driven by personal finances. So if you're huge into TSLA stock, obviously, Waymo is not going to sound so great to you. If you're huge into Google or whatever, right, you're like, the vision stuff is a joke. So if you can remove that and get that out of the way, then you can look at this more pragmatically. And the reality is, Waymo has a proven track record, a safe proven track record across a number of cities. Tesla is coming in with something new and more affordable. So it's going to be fascinating to watch. Can they prove that this system that they claim is so safe for our customers can also translate to a safe autonomous fleet with no operator? And that's where we're at right now. And that's what's really cool about this. So now we've got the question. We're about to find out. So can we do what this company costs? I think the new average is $120,000 or $150,000 for a Waymo with all of the gear and everything, compared to a $45,000 option straight off of the production line. That's discounting Cybercab, of course, which is coming later at a more affordable price whenever that happens. So that's a huge difference. And when we talk about scalability, that's when things really start to matter, is that price, right? So I mean, nobody in that space is going to be able to scale like Tesla, assuming they're going to be able to prove that this system operates as safe as Waymo or better. And I think that there's a good chance that it could, because the one thing Tesla has that nobody else has is the data. And I think that that is a big, big piece to all of this.
One thing that we talked about is, I mean, Elon is like a data company. Tesla is a data company, and they've really built themselves. And what Elon's done is, really heavily invest in AI and the back end, where the traditional OEM is very rudimentary. I mean, it kind of ties in. We'll talk about Jim Farley's remarks, but I mean, Elon is very diversified, and he's very politically divisive right now. But I think everybody has to, at some point, in some level, the guy's a genius, and the fact that he's involved in a lot of really advanced technologies. The Optimus robot's just an example of where his brain's at as far as the future. Obviously, there's a lot to get that in production, as we kind of started showing that with Chris and Martin being at the factory. But the fact that you're looking at that level, nobody else is taking that approach and also making vehicles at the same time. And yes, I mean, it's distinct entities between SpaceX and Tesla and XAI and X and all these different entities that he owns. But in the brain of Elon, I think you're seeing a push towards the future of AI having more control and say. And I mean, he built XAI in a matter of, I think it was like 6 to 8 weeks, and it's already more advanced than ChatGPT, in my opinion, as far as the back end engine behind it. With Jesse has all the stats on the NVIDIA chips and all the stuff that he likes to talk about, but it's a more advanced engine, and he's already surpassed that in such a short time frame. But that level of thinking, and if you look at really the future, it may not be quite ready yet, but that's really, I mean, the AI piece of it has changed the world in the last 5 years, and I think it will continue to do such. And AI is manifested in the Optimus robot, and in the self-driving technology, and in different applications. And so that improving is what's going to lead to those technologies really exceeding as time progresses.
Yeah, I want to go ahead, Justin.
Go ahead, Chris.
Yeah, I really want to touch on that, because that was a big thing, as as we were with Josh and explaining like the differences in Waymo. I think there is it's a subtle but important difference. And I think this is something that all credit to Elon, because he always is thinking 10 steps ahead. And so much of our culture has turned into this immediate gratification. Like, I want it now. And sometimes it sacrifices the long-term better. And I think whether it's with SpaceX and the reusable rockets, whether it's with, how they started with Model S and X and eventually scaling with 3 and now Y, I just think he's always thinking longer term. And I think this is an example of that, because there is a fundamental difference in how they use AI. Waymo uses AI, but they are taking, currently a Jaguar I-Pace, and there are probably more Jaguar I-Paces in Waymo's fleet than the entire rest of the world combined. Right?
It's so unfortunate, by the way. Such a cool car.
It is. The thing is that it is a cool car. It's a Jaguar, so you are already paying more.
Branding on the new versions, you think?
Was it lowercase J Jaguar now or something? I don't think. Yeah,
we're not going to talk about that today,
right?
But
so you're already fundamentally starting with a more expensive platform, and now you are putting a bunch of stuff on top of it. And the next step for them out here in San Francisco is they are partnering with Zeekr. And Zeekr is a Chinese firm, and there's a whole video where I got to mess with the Zeekr 001, which is a ridiculous car on all levels. And Kyle Connor came out here, and we zipped it around the Skyline Boulevard out here, and it was nuts. It did things that, we made our way into Mexico to demonstrate it, and then came back. We did some incredible things, but it is now a Chinese company on top of is Jaguar British still?
Well, so did Tata sell the rights?
Tata was India. Is that right?
Yeah, Indian. Mm-hmm.
So there's just all this stuff coming together, and all of those are layers of cost. And then the fundamental way that they're using AI for Waymo is they are taking all of the sensor data, and they are using all of the mapping. and they are training it on the maps, right? And I
Yeah.
think of this comparing the difference between a college course and someone that's in the real world. So your mapping data is a college course. It's a static, sensor based, here is your data, right? And then when someone gets their degree and then they go into the real world, it's good to have that foundation, but the real world doesn't work that way. It's filled with complex humans doing all kinds of weird behaviors. And I think that is the fundamental difference with Tesla is their AI isn't doing mapping and sensor data to try to extrapolate, like, how to think and what to do and what decisions to make, which can be flawed. Like out here in San Francisco, famously a year back, because the mapping didn't know that on a certain day in Chinatown, this was a street fair and a celebration of Chinese New Year, the Waymo went down a street that was closed, but it didn't know that. And so it got attacked and set on fire. And it had no way with its AI to understand the real world that it was existing in at that moment. And it will get better, of course. But now Tesla's approach is they are taking AI trained on billions of miles of real world driving data and behavior from their global fleet. So even if, like, Waymo is limited to what it knows about San Francisco and its map, what it knows about Atlanta and its map. And it's not, the AI isn't integrating the behaviors of San Francisco into Atlanta. Whereas Tesla is taking its worldwide fleet of data and behaviors and visual cues, and it's constantly trying to iterate and constantly trying to think through what its next decision is. Then to your point, Josh, eventually this will make its way, some iteration of it, into the behaviors of Optimus and how it sees the world and how it interacts with the world.
It's
I just
exact
think
technology.
it's such a fundamental difference for the future, right? And this is the worst you will ever see RoboTaxi. So to me, it's completely reasonable that you have a safety monitor on day one of this, and completely reasonable that you have a remote support available. And people were like, "Oh, it's not the exact Model Y that I can buy." Dude, those are intelligent things that you better be doing on day one of your test. A year from now, it's going to look different. 5 years from now, it's going to look different. But the fundamental core is the base Model Y. Did they put some smart things on there that makes it? Absolutely. I mean, what are your thoughts on that, Justin? Because I think they've got a lot of unfair heat for that.
Yeah. So I don't pretend to know all of the details of the differences. The car itself, though, the portion of the car that's operating as a taxi that's transporting humans without a driver, that part is the same car that's coming off the line at Tesla. They've added some speakers and stuff, and a lot of this, to my understanding, again, is for internal monitoring and ensuring safety inside of the cab. So that stuff is, it's not like they added some hidden sensors that are casting laser beams on corners to make sure it's nothing like nefarious, right? It's a speaker or an internal monitor of some kind that's a little bit different. But the car, in what it is doing, is the same exact car that I have right out here. And that's what's really cool about it. A lot of what we've been talking about just this last little session too, I call it the Elon factor. And this is where I start to get accused of being a Tesla fanboy. And if you can take politics and all the other stuff, like him or hate him, he's able to do something that a lot of people can't. And it's not only because there's an intellectual piece behind it. There are in many cases, but also because of the structure of Tesla itself. Tesla has the luxury of doing things that Jim Farley could never do, even if he had the same idea, because the institution of Ford is not set up in a way that can accommodate these types of things. For example, Waymo, they're able to fine-tune software related only to the sensors and how it's putting that feedback into the car. They can't change the maximum rotation of a left turn in a Jaguar I-Pace. Tesla can, right? So they're able to change everything about that vehicle, from the software to the hardware, all of it, 100%, because it's all theirs. One of the things Jim Farley's probably my favorite CEO in legacy auto because he's such a realist. And I remember listening to one of his podcasts, and he made the comment that, Ford, we can't do software like Tesla, and the reason is because Bosch is making the ECU, company B is making the PCM. All these things have to communicate, and they're using different protocols, and like the complexity of all of that cannot be understated. And I think a lot of people don't make that connection in the same way, and that's why for Ford to do something like this would be way more complicated than a Tesla, because essentially what Ford would have to do is develop a system outside of the existing platform, kind of like Waymo, right? They develop this entire plethora, this whole suite of sensors and cameras and LiDAR, all feeding into its own piece that's giving input to the car. It cannot be integrated like it is in a Tesla. It's just how it is. It's not a Tesla is better because of it or not. That's just the reality, and that's where legacy is going to have these struggles that I don't know the answers, but these are real challenges that they're going to have to overcome. That Tesla is the only player right now that's able to do it in this way.
It's a huge point. The when you look at the billions that they talk about Ford losing, so much of that for their electric vehicle program is them trying to ramp up the Blue Oval plant out there in Tennessee where Josh is. There's an SK On battery plant, I believe, where Josh is. There's a CATL, which is a whole different episode, man, that we have to touch on, because both Tesla and Ford, and they're both doing CATL.
Yeah.
Tesla out here in Nevada, where not where I live, but up the street, basically.
Your backyard.
Right? Yeah, my backyard. We got just right up the way. They're doing CATL licensed battery for the 4680. And again, interesting, different approaches. Ford has their Michigan plant that's going to be ramping up here in the next year. They are using prismatic. So that'll be an interesting difference, both CATL technologies and licensing. And I just really thought there was that synergy. I was like, dude, they're both doing CATL. They've partnered. They were the first to partner on NACS. To your point, I love everything about Jim Farley. But it is a lot like what you said is, Tesla has already taken the cost and the development of FSD. So converting that overhead and that manufacturing into a RoboTaxi, into the cybercab, a lot of that R&D has already been done. A lot of their manufacturing plants are already built. Ford is trying to ramp up an entire plant that doesn't exist. They're trying to then, if they're going to do, they're not going to do a RoboTaxi, but if they're going to do some type of, was it level 4 autonomy? To your point, they've got to take their already more expensive platform, which their next gen is supposed to be better, and now slap someone else's system that they don't have control over on top of it. And they just talked about on their last earnings call that they felt confident with eyes off highway driving internal in-house with their Blue Cruise team, but that they really felt like they had to do a partnership when it comes to full autonomy, point to point, all over the roads. And then they just talked this isn't even an announcement. I think this has been overblown a bit too, but it is an indicator. Jim Farley did make the comment that he felt Waymo had the right direction with LiDAR, and him saying all the things he did about the Xiaomi SU7 and him being out in China, he's seen a lot of this stuff. He's seen a lot of the technology out there. So I think that's made an imprint on him. But some people have announced that, they've chosen Waymo over Tesla. I don't think because he says LiDAR is the path that they've chosen Waymo at all. I don't expect Waymo to suddenly partner with Ford. I think people have misinterpreted that. I still am disappointed, to be honest, though. I really thought, in my naive heart, I thought they are going to announce it this year, that there is a partnership before next year with Tesla. And it didn't happen. And I was so heartbroken over it. But I understand why, to your point, because they are built on third-party partnerships.
And I think he called LiDAR mission critical. And I think that they see that as the short-term play, where, like you said earlier, I think Elon's looking at the long-term play. Yeah. Because, we talked about it on the Tech Charge live episode last week, where we have these frustrations where Blue Cruise is not understanding how to navigate traffic, and it's because it's using sensors and thinking, okay, there's no car in front of me, so now I'm going to go back to the speed limit, because that's what that LiDAR is limited to. You're not using AI to understand that you're in traffic. Here's the situation. We're going to ease in and ease out, because that's an AI brain that's putting that logic into motion for AI driving. LiDAR is going to say, no cars in front of me. I'm going to go back to the speed limit again. Oh, now everybody stop. I'm slam on the brakes again, because it lacks that thinking mechanism that you're going to get. And so I think, Ford's taking the approach of safety and of, instant, like you said earlier, instant gratification, because it's a technology that's already produced, it's verified, and they already have LiDAR in their Blue Cruise technology. And I think that they've been in discussions with Tesla about the full self-drive and trying to get a license in regards to that with the vehicle. But my guess is that Jim's putting that on the long play. But to tie into your recent statement here, Chris, is I think that we are seeing the American OEM struggle with the technological boom that's taking place. And it really worries me, because Tesla's the only one in the nation equipped to manage the technological changes taking place. And the other people that are able to manage it is BYD and these other companies that are foreign OEMs that would be able to come in and infiltrate. On the short term, we're seeing these traditional OEMs choke on the vine because technology is changing too quickly. And like you said, Justin, they're so stuck in the parameters of corporate entities and what they've done for 100 years that they can't evolve with this recent boom in technology. And AI in and of itself, like I said a minute ago, in the last 5 years has changed the world. And the modern OEM is like, and Elon's making robots with AI. And it's like, you have to be versatile it happened, in the 1900s, where we saw the major technological boom, especially going into the internet age, and seeing, and since the early 2000s, how far technology's come, where, phones were gigantic, and now you have a computer sitting in front of you. Like it's this technology that's increasing, and you have to be a company that's structured to match the emerging technology. And I'm not saying Waymo and that technology isn't valid. It is sufficient, but the whole point of this conversation is you have to look to the future. And as a CEO of a large OEM, you can't be saying what's going to work in 2 years. It's what's the 10-year roadmap to where we need to be. Because if you don't look that far ahead, you're going to die on the vine, which is where some of the other OEMs I think are already dying, is because they lacked evolution. And now they're like, well, now we got to change, and it's too late, because the technology every single day is improving so much that you have to stay in pace, and you have to figure out how to internalize that to where you have as much control as you can, because the more pieces and parts that you're trying to bring in from different vendors, Tesla's compartmentalized that to where they control it all, like you said. But now we're in the situation where there's this diverse amount of technology coming into motion, and you're trying to find who to partner with, what to do. And Tesla's like, well, we're just going to make it. You can license our Genius, which they've already done with NACS, and they're about to do with full self-drive. And my prediction is 3 years from now, you're going to see a major push for other OEMs, especially as Tesla full self-drive validates itself. You're going to see other OEMs trying to license Tesla, which isn't them being their own genius. They're just going to bum off of what is currently the 10-year mindset that Elon's doing, which is what's made him so successful in the first place. He creates technology, and other people want it.
Just real quick on the Ford uses radar but not LiDAR. Just for clarification, it's LiDAR is a bit more advanced, but to your point, that is their tradition. Yeah, I mean, what are your thoughts on that, Justin?
Well, I mean, I don't think that Jim Farley's statement was surprising to me, mostly because he's in a world of what he can and cannot operate with, and LiDAR is something that they can incorporate into their existing setup, and they can do things with it. Now, will it be amazing? I don't know. That's yet to be seen. But also, I think the challenge that OEMs are seemingly trying to solve are bigger than what they need to be solving. perhaps they don't need to be so focused on a RoboTaxi type setup where nobody's driving. What they need to be focused on is how can we get Chris his truck to just drive him, to the lake this weekend? How can we focus on that? Forget all this other stuff that's adding a lot of complexity to solving this problem that's not your problem, honestly. Ford's not going to be operating a driverless taxi service. GM's not going to be doing that. They want to sell cars to you. And so how do they provide that car to you with an experience that's consistent with what you expect? You don't want to necessarily pay attention to everything. So maybe those parameters aren't so big. The other thing, Tesla is doing things that other OEMs can't do. And a lot of this, for some reason, Tesla seems to be the exception to the rule of the shareholders always drive decisions. And I just remember famously into COVID, Mary Barra spouting off all this stuff about EVs, and we're starting to see some really cool stuff. But man, they pivoted so fast, and it was shareholders are crying uncle, and they are determining and they are pushing these companies to go back to building V8s, go back to building, whatever, forget EVs, forget all this stuff. And that's unfortunate. Now, the good thing is, I don't think China will anytime soon be coming into the US because they're going to be artificially kept out, which I personally think is a good thing. We have to do that to protect our automotive industry. But our automotive industry is so freaking powerful that they are preventing progress. And that is the scary part. The companies like Ford, Volkswagen, GM, the writing is on the wall, and there's not much they can do about it. We're finally starting to see, over the last, I'd say 5 years, we started to see these little tests happening with OEMs. They're trying to figure out, how can I have a brand and not be constrained by the franchise dealer network? Because that's step one. That's only the first step. And there's been some hiccups along the way. Nothing's really stuck. But I think we're about to see our first real legacy-owned brand that's not within the confines of the existing setup. And I think that's Scout. And then hopefully, fingers crossed, minus this new EV tax credit issue, the new truck that we just had announced was Slate. So I think that we're finally starting to see this next generation of try to launch a new brand. And when they can do that, now they have the ability to do a lot of things they cannot do today, including vertical integration. They can start from the floor. They can do everything they want to do. But I still caution, focus on what you're supposed to focus on. If you go look in Texas, there's freaking steam rolling out of smokestacks of this crazy high-tech computer that's doing all AI right now at Tesla. You don't have to do that. And so don't kill yourself trying to fight for the things that would require that. You know what I mean?
It's an interesting point that you bring up, and I do think it reflects on the fundamental difference in people make comments all the time. Elon didn't found Tesla. Elon doesn't design the rockets, right? Elon doesn't X and Y, right? But you just described the absolute difference between Elon and the other CEOs, which is that if you want to get into the semantics of who founded, if you want to get into the semantics of the actual engineers that make the rockets launch, the actual engineers that make the assembly line run, is Elon out there? Yes. Hey, by the way, he has spent time on the floor and slept on the floor, but yeah, he knows he has to build an entire team around him. But there's a fundamental difference. We know Mary led, of course, right? We all know that. Obviously. But to your point, they are all beholden to three really strong pressures. Their dealer network, exactly what you said, their unions, and their shareholders. And 2 out of 3 of those Elon doesn't have to deal with. The third he does, but he's such a big part of it, and the shareholders believe in him, as voted on by, the ultimate democracy, money where its mouth is. The people that own the company voted their faith in Elon. And the thing about him is that personality, that long-term perseverance, that way to say, I don't care what the shareholders say. I'm not worried about the unions and the dealers, which he doesn't have to deal with. This is the vision. This is what we're doing. It's very much in that Steve Jobs kind of mindset of, this is what the iPhone has to be. This is what it has to do. That's not good enough. I'm thinking 5 years out. Everybody's talking BlackBerry, and for those old enough to remember, right, the physical keyboard of the BlackBerry, all of corporate, that was the device, and it was unheard of that you couldn't have a physical keyboard. Nobody would use it. The security wasn't nearly good enough. Nobody is using a BlackBerry. Ironically, tangent, Ford's sync system is based on software made by the old BlackBerry company. Literally, it's, I know it's not the same, but it's still just, there's something ironic about that to me, in the juxtaposition between the Ford-based sync system, which is the code of the old BlackBerry company, and the future. And it's Elon's ability to say, this is the focused, true north that we are on, and the ability to not get swayed the way that, unfortunately, to Jim Farley's credit, he knows this stuff, and he tried really hard to get direct purchases to where you couldn't have the dealers marking stuff up. The dealer network, he wanted, DC chargers at all the dealers. He wanted a whole program for EVs. He had a plan, and they pushed back, and they had lawsuits, and they went crazy, and they kind of had to settle. And same thing, he had this huge plan about a zonal architecture, and they brought in Doug Field, a former Segway and Apple and Tesla executive, and they set up a team of skunkworks in Irvine and right out here in Palo Alto across the bridge from me. He wanted to do it, and they just couldn't do it. And then now they're doing this kind of hybrid where, okay, we're still going to use the Bosch and the other type modules, but we're, the core will be controlled by us, but all those modules the dealers need their piece. The third-party OEMs, they need their piece. The unions on the LFP batteries, they need their piece. They have to be reassured you're going to get union labor on this Michigan plant. The pressures politically of the shareholders caused that plant to be delayed. That was supposed to already be getting ready to ramp up. Tesla has that singular focus, and Elon at the head of it keeps it focused and away from all of that shareholder pressure that distracts it. And that's why now you're seeing Ford is going to pivot more to me. They're going to have some EVs, and they're going to do some great stuff, better than they ever would have done if not for Jim going to China, being inspired by Tesla. But they're going to see a lot more E-revs. You're going to see a lot more of this hybrid stuff. They do, right? And Tesla has always been singularly focused. And if you've never led a company, if you've never led a group of thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people across the world, I don't think people appreciate what it is that he does. And they think it's these hundreds of thousands, and it is. The magic isn't that he's doing it rather than the 100,000. The magic is that like a conductor of a symphony orchestra, he is calibrating and organizing and focusing those hundreds of thousands to do what he singularly understands is the thing that has to be done.
I think it's the limiting. Yeah, I think it's the limiting factor that you see, and I just said this, but I think that the leadership can't necessarily reflect the red tape that's been put in place over the years by the corporate entity. It's the same exact thing with politics. Just because you elect a president, no matter which one you wanted, when they get into office, they can't just fix everything because there's so much red tape across all of this. The government has grown to be so big and so massive. It's like one person can't change that. And just because they're the leader of the country doesn't mean that they have this widespread, and they can try, obviously, but that's where with Jim Farley, he can have the initiative. But if you're caught up in the red tape of the OEM that exists, then you're limited on your capability to push that company forward. And to me, my question becomes, is the modern, or is the traditional OEM at risk of dying on the vine if China at some point in the next 5 to 8 years is allowed to come in unimpeded to the United States and bring their product? Would the Nissans, the Fords, the Chevys, would all those die on the vine because they failed to adapt, and they're so caught up in like you were saying, Chris, this union needs their cut, and this person needs their cut, and this person needs their cut. And all that does is speak to higher cost when these other people are streamlined and they've been able to bring costs way down because they don't have all that malarkey. And, it's just one of those things like, are we at risk of seeing the modern OEM die? Is this the end of the traditional OEM? Or do you think that there's a way that they can adapt and thrive in the technologically changing market? Because going back to my last comment, technology is changing, but all the red tape of government, like you said, Chris, you made a comment about how, I think it might have been you, Justin, you were talking about how they're going back to gas and like it's narrated by the shareholders. But all of this is going to lead to a recession in the American automotive industry and bailouts or otherwise having to take place in order to keep them alive, because Tesla, BYD, and some of these other companies who've gotten out of the way, maybe Scout, maybe some of these other companies like the other one, have the ability to, bring and revolutionize that front and encourage the new iteration of these OEMs. But my fear is that you're going to see the traditional OEM die on the vine.
Go ahead, Chris.
Yeah, I just think, was it Slate you were thinking of, Josh? And
I was being stable. I was like, that's not right. But yeah,
there's Slate, and then there's the I was gonna say Toro. It's not Toro. What's the little truck company right here in the Bay Area with the little blunt nose?
What is the name of that company? They do some
God.
fun stuff on social media too.
Yeah, they do. There is a lot of those people coming, and EREV is going to be there's going to be a lot of market in EREV, a lot of profitability. They can do those. It's in their comfort zone. It's I think they can. Man, I just wish they would, walk and chew bubble gum at the same time. Can we both things be on a path? And we'll see what they do in 27.
There's no question, zero question. If China were to come, it would be game over for legacy as we know it. There's no question about that. I am of the opinion that that'll never happen, as much as they may want it to happen. I remember a lot of discussion around this trade discussion with China. People said, well, just let the Chinese in and really show them. I'm like, dude, the automotive industry in Canada is just as important to them as our automotive industry is, and it's just as powerful. It's not going to happen, and that's a good thing, I argue, but there's some real issues here that I'm heartbroken, to be honest with you, as somebody who advocates for EVs and the transition to electrification and finding ways to remove roadblocks. It's sad to me to watch this big push into hybrids. They're way more complex. They're the worst of both worlds. They're way less safe, which is something that just kills me. I don't know how many of my dad's friends have made comments on my social media about my car catching fire, and they're buying a hybrid. It's like the most likely car to catch fire of any kind. So there's this lack of education. There's this preconceived notions about what an EV is or should be. There's so many things that they have done such a good job over the years painting this picture and this narrative. And unfortunately, it's so heartbreaking to watch legacy take a step back, because in 2020 through 2022, it was inspiring to watch the things that were happening that I said were impossible. There's no way legacy could do this. It was so awesome. And it's coming back now. Like, it's not going to happen. So
they had all these epic ideas. They all came to market with $100,000 EVs and were shocked. They weren't getting 500,000 sales a year. And it's like, the Tesla is the number one vehicle in the world because it's a $35,000 to $40,000 brand new car. 100%. And no legacy OEM has rivaled that, maybe outside the Chevy Bolt, but not everybody wants a Chevy Bolt. You need to have that fit, or you can have a Rivian that costs $50,000, and you can have a Ford, Explorer that costs, $40,000 as an EV. And right now, the only people doing an affordable EV is Tesla. And Ford comes out and drops an $80,000 truck. All of their $39,000 Pros are unavailable. So all you can go out and buy is a $60,000 basically minimum base model. And they're like, why are we getting 500,000 units a year? Well, it's because, you need to have an affordable option really to see that ramp up. The reason that BYD's taken over China is a $10,000 EV. That's going to thrive anywhere that you go. And if there was EVs here that were $20,000, you'd have a lot of sales of them. But the legacy OEM, with all of the issues that they've had, especially with sourcing batteries and everything else, they can't get an affordable EV, and they're doing all these investing in making more vehicles. And then they're like, well, we have to scale back production. You're not going to sell $500,000, $100,000 Hummer EVs. That's never going to happen. It's a niche product. You have to have the $50,000 EV.
Less.
Yeah, less. I agree
less.
with that too. But you can start to make justifications on fuel savings, and while the tax credit exists, the tax credit and those things to make that justification. I do know a regular F-150 does cost $60,000, but you're not going to sell one for $80,000 just because it's electric. Like, that doesn't make any sense. You have to be competitive, apples to apples, to make it make sense. And I think that's where we have this gap. Is we saw that inspiration in 2020 to 2022 and all of these major pushes. And look what we're going to do. Look what we're going to release. And
so exciting.
Chevrolet drops their epic RST and the Hummer EV and the GMC Sierra. Then you have the Cadillac EV. And it's like all these really cool technology vehicles, and their minimum starting price is $100,000. It's like, nobody can afford it. You have to adapt and actually don't release a product unless it's actually affordable. And that's where Tesla's like, hey, we're going to drop a $40,000 car. It's like, that's what's going to sell. And so, if you can find, the Rivian trying to get the R3 down in cost.
R2, hopefully.
Sorry. I said I went to the next generation. The R2 down in cost. And you're seeing some of those, the Scout is going to be up. I forget the name again.
Tello. Jace chimed in and texted it.
There you go.
Is the truck we were.
Yeah. Thank you.
Jace,
That's the one.
Truck got all this hype and all these reservations because what was the advertised starting price on it?
On which one?
The Amazon one. The base.
Oh, that's the Slate one. That's the Slate one.
Yeah, under 20,000 with tax credit. So just $27,000.
That's what the market needs. And yes, the range is low, but a $20,000 EV.
Yes.
Now we're talking. We're getting close.
Blank slate
Tesla
is one of the greatest marketing things ever. Like, they sell you a blank slate. That's literally what it's called, and you can accessorize it. That is brilliant.
Maybe that'll help me actually remember it. I don't know.
Yeah.
Even Tesla themselves is not exempt from this rule. There was a time when I said, if I see another $80,000 to $100,000 new announced EV, I'm gonna throw up. There's only so many $100,000 customers, and even Tesla is not exempt from this. The Cybertruck is the perfect example of this, right in our faces. Thing was announced to start at $39,000, would top at $70,000. Of course, range. There's other things that are an issue, but at the end of the day, the thing is twice the price, essentially, of what was announced. That is a big issue. And what really disappointed me was we were waiting for rear-wheel drive to come out. The re-announced price of it was going to be $61,000 or $62,000, and it's $70,000, guys. Like that.
No exportable power is the deal killer for me. No tonneau. You remove the tonneau and the exportable power. I don't care about the suspension. I don't care. That's fine. I don't need that air ride. Man, I need that exportable power, and I need the tonneau.
It's worse than that, though, because we have at 61 or 62,000, whatever it was, we're talking a $55,000 truck after tax credit. That is perfect. Like, we can make that work. Of course, they stripped a lot of stuff out of it. So there's arguments there, but that is very, very different than a $65,000 truck. That is not the same, and that customer is not the same, and that also is not the same as a $40,000 truck. So things have changed, and even the Giant is not exempt from these core rules of the market. And if Legacy doesn't somehow figure out how to do this, either within their existing confines or with a new brand all on its own, somehow, some way that'll stick. This is not good. I don't think it's going to be a quick death either. I think a lot of these companies, it is going to be a slow and painful death over 10 years. I think Stellantis is probably in the worst position of
Yeah.
the trio.
I agree.
But I am so rooting for, Jim Farley, hearts for you, my man. I am so rooting for it because Jim Farley doesn't put ego or brand in the way of customer experience. And that is something we don't have from most CEOs in this space. So, man, there's an awakening coming. And I am terrified of what comes from that because I grew up in an automotive family. So I know how far this stretches and the impacts to people that this has if it's not figured out.
I'm hoping for Jim, and I think the worry is that, hey, we had this window where, to your point, Justin, we've kind of externally taken China and said you can't play on our playground, and it's given us the opportunity now, this window of time, to catch up, to get ourselves on the right track. And if we waste this moment, it's going to be too late. We're going to lose manufacturing to China the way we have with, you can't buy a Zenith TV in America anymore, made in America. You can't buy appliances. I don't want to lose this one piece. We need it. We need it. The ability, when you think of COVID and the things that they were making for the what are those machines that would
the respirators,
right? Like, you need a manufacturing base. And what I'm hoping, again, maybe naively, because I'm just always I am a Ford fanboy. Fine. I still love and respect a lot of the other. I'm a huge Tesla fanboy for that matter, but I really love Ford, and what I'm hoping, maybe naively so, is that they are understanding, because Tennessee was supposed to be an all-electric plant, and now it's going to very much pivot to a electric and EREV. But at least with EREV, the underpinnings of that vehicle are still electric. It's still the electric motor. There's still a smaller battery pack. Yeah, you've got maybe an inline 4 or something that's helping augment this thing. But the fundamentals of that manufacturing process, I'm hoping, will be easy to transition and pivot fully electric. And I think back to what Tesla did with their Model S after the 3 came out, and I think I'm getting this right, where they took at one of the revisions of the I want to say 2019 of the Model S, they took the Model 3 performance motor and they put it into the front motor of the Model S. I don't know if I'm getting that right, but it's like, it's just such an easy, hey, we made this amazing thing. Let's put it in this. We've already made, there's some little differences, but for the most part. And so you can kind of do that in a way. If you take your EREV and now you take this motor and you just take that inline out, you put the new battery pack that's more dense and cheaper to build. It's not that hard a pivot. And I'm hoping that with that huge plant in Tennessee, that is built into the assembly line and the long-term plan, that they're kind of having to hedge their bets. And Jace on X dropped a comment, well, the market is hybrid. And he's right. There's a huge market in hybrid, even in China. People talk 100%. About BYD's numbers, and those numbers are a little bit skewed because they count hybrid and EREV as electric. And it really throws off the numbers coming out of China in that way. There is a huge market for it. I'm hoping that Ford is thinking that way.
There's no question about it. I mean, like I told you, some of my dad's friends make these comments. These are hardcore Rumble V8 people that are excited about their hybrid now. This is different. This is a new age, and I'm not saying that has to be a bad thing. I'm just heartbroken about it because we were headed in the right path. So how do we get this opportunity to make this sustainable? And I don't think that this is going to be sustainable because the rest of the world is going to keep on chugging along, and they're going to keep on advancing, and we're going to be stuck building these plants making friggin' hybrids. And the problem with that is Legacy already has these huge operations built on debt that are optimized to build V8s, to build Suburbans, to build F-150. Like, those are the bread and butter. And as the world turns and as everything is advancing, these are obsolete. And that is a problem.
Yeah, and I'll say that, I don't think the technology is at the point where there's not a world in which V8 and hybrid and all these other technologies don't still exist and aren't needed.
Yeah.
I agree with you, Chris, that there is still a large need for the hybrid and the plug-in hybrid and those people, especially as the transition occurs. And yet, the massive resistance against electric vehicle technology is purely political, in my opinion. I mean, there's no reason outside of politics that it's not advancing. And, just to me, like as a fundamental, like just a basic, you sit back, China's doing electric vehicles very well. And we are not. Like if you're just a traditional thinker, like you're falling behind China. Like just that statement alone doesn't sound good rolling off the tongue. And that's one of those things that, yes, electric vehicles, plug-in hybrids, and V8s, they all still have their place. But we're not in a world anymore where V8s are like the king of like all, like that's what the major focus has to be. They do that, like you said, they do that and they do that very well. Obviously, Ford and a lot of these other legacy are looking at the plug-in hybrid and the hybrid as the short-term solution. I do feel like there is a need for those because efficient vehicles are going to help people in that application. However, it's still one of those things that the electric vehicle technology as a whole is something that needs to be pushed into. And it also is the same exact, going back to the original topic of the Tesla versus Waymo and the different technologies, we can't be limited to this is the way. It's here is the future, and we have to be open to whatever outcome it heads towards. And what I know is that ICE engines still very much have a place in our market, and they will still maintain a dominance in our market as we begin that transition. And I don't think that they're ever going to completely go away. I might be wrong on that, but I don't think they're ever going to completely go away. I like an ICE car as much as the next guy. However, I drive an electric vehicle because it makes the most sense for me. And take all the politics aside, that's what the lesson needs to be. It's like understand the technology and don't be resistant to it just on a political whim. Look at this idea of the evolving technology and the emerging world of technology, from AI to electric to all these different things that are taking place in our world, and understand that things evolve over time. And that's one of the technologies that is coming onto the scene, and it is rapidly improving as battery technology improves. And as we see some of these other technologies improve, we might see a world in which we have autonomous driving where every vehicle in the future, let's say 20 years from now, every vehicle is autonomous on the road driving everybody from A to B because that AI system has been worked on and perfected to that point. I don't think you're ever going to get there with LiDAR, but that's just my opinion. However, these technologies are so rapidly improving that the world of 20 years from now, which is within hopefully all of our lifetimes, we're going to be able to see this crazy technology go from where 20 years ago we didn't have a computer in our vehicle to now every vehicle's run on a computer. It's one of the most common things I've gotten in East Tennessee is, well, your vehicle can be shut down by the government. I'm like, your vehicle can too, run by a computer. Anyways, I'm getting off my horse. All that being said, there is this element of maintaining knowledge of the evolving world of technology and staying in tune and in step with this evolution, because hey, electric vehicles in 10 years, there might be a different technology that's even better that we don't even know about yet. You just have to maintain awareness of evolution of technology as mankind progresses through this crazy boom that we've been over the past 100 years in technology, and continue to maintain and grow as those things evolve.
It's hybrid it's hydrogen, by the way. Market.
Shout out, Jesse. I love how we fit. God bless you, Jesse. We fit a hydrogen reference into this somehow. That is awesome.
It's the future.
It was like one of my favorite things I've ever edited was the hydrogen ASMR, and got no love on social media. Everybody was like, yeah, take it or leave it. It was like one of the greatest things that I ever edited. But it is what it is. It was worth it, and I get to go back and reflect on it. If you've not, go find the video on our shorts on any of the platforms, because it was my favorite I've ever made. But
it was a work of art, Josh. I appreciate you.
It was epic. Max Pattern here is saying there's no way that Tesla would ever make a car with a combustion engine. It's not just environmental or ideological. The whole company's reason for being and and supply chain is geared around eliminating complexity, not adding it. Plug-in hybrids and e-revs are niche and not the future.
Yeah, dude, I agree.
Tesla will maintain electric 100%. The
Yep.
traditional OEM might introduce the e-rev and then transition to electric as their evolution. But the question is, can they bridge that gap quick enough? Because I do think that e-rev has its place. And I think that it's a practical technology. But like you're saying, Justin, it's way more complex. It's way more risk. I wouldn't want to buy it because the technological componentry. One of the beauties of buying an EV is it's so technologically simple that it's low maintenance, easy to run, and as I showed you my trip last.
Don't you want to have to keep going in for tune-ups and oil changes and have an electric car? I mean, come on.
50,000 miles on my last EV, and literally all I ever did was rotate the tires. And one single time replace the tires because that's maintenance at 50,000 miles. The gas powered vehicle every 5,000 miles, I'm in the shop with my wife's SUV, and it's like, that's the way that things have always been. But it's just that mindset of understanding it. And I took my wife and we went out to Tulsa, Oklahoma, drove all the way back. It was a 1,000-mile journey home in a Lightning, which doesn't have 500-mile range like some of the other vehicles. It was not a major inconvenience to us at all. We stopped for lunch, stopped for dinner. There was one time we stopped, went into a Target, and we got home. Like, it was a 1,000-mile journey. Not many people do 1,000 miles on a road trip. We didn't experience any major inconvenience. We plugged in, went in, had a meal, and left. And that was it. We were done. It was easy, ready to go. And so it's just understanding that, like, everything's not as horrible as it seems. And the three things I've always said, I'm going to forget the third one, but the one is affordability of the vehicle, which we've already talked about. The affordability has to improve. 2, charging availability. It's gotten so much better in the last 5 years, and it's continuing to get better. Power up. We're trying to improve that situation in the Southeast, but I've already seen the charging network almost double in my area, at least within a few hundred miles, because of those variables. The third thing was range, which I think that 350 to 400 miles is a comfortable range for anybody. A lot of the EVs are 250, and that can be a little bit limiting on road trips, but if you can get a 300, 350 mile range, it's the Jim Farley bladder concept. Like, I stop sometimes quicker than I need to because I don't want to drive 5 hours without stopping. And so all those pieces combined is where the technology pushes you forward, and understanding that it's still a very viable opportunity to continue to get us down the right path.
My hope with the e-rev is there's going to be a market of people maybe that live out in the middle of the country that need the range. And if they can feel what it's like to drive an e-rev and notice, I got a video coming out Friday of when I took my Lightning in for a recall for the upper control arm. They gave me a Ford Escape plug-in hybrid, and it's just got a little 11 kilowatt hour battery, just 11. And I drove that thing 250 miles, all electric, on a little 11 kilowatt hour battery. It became an interesting experiment for me. And I drove it down to the 49ers, to Levi Stadium for an event down there, plugged it in at the stadium, drove it back home, drove it back and forth to work for a week, drove it to SFO for my trip to Dallas that I had just a week ago, plugged in at Dallas where they have charge points on their parking garage, drove home, right? 250 miles, all electric on 11 kilowatt. And it shocked me. I'll be honest. It shocked me that I could go all electric in this plug-in hybrid and never use the gas. And it was like 99 miles. Was it 99 miles per gallon? Because that's as high as the thing would allow it to go. I was so excited by this. I'm like, so I got to make this video. And I think as people, I mean, it was shocking to me as an EV owner that I could actually do that for a week. And I think as people experience it and realize that the 30 or whatever kilowatt hour pack they put into some of these e-revs, holy crap, you're going to get to a point for some of these drivers where they literally have to turn the gas on because the gas will expire and go bad if they don't. And
like the Bolt,
right?
The Volt. You remember the Volt?
Sorry, Bolt. Yes. Or the BMW i3 that had, and you're suddenly going to realize, crap, why am I paying for this stuff? Why am I changing my oil? Why am I having rotten gas in my tank? Why don't I just buy the real thing? And as I was last night with Martin and his wife, and we're driving up and down the incredible hills of San Francisco, And doing that, we were joking. Like, can you imagine doing this in a gas vehicle, especially one with a clutch, as you're trying
to banger?
Yeah, I mean, dude, it was, and there's cars around us like struggling. You can hear the motor revving and trying so hard to get up this hill, and the lightning, this big heavy beast of a thing with all that torque, just up and down the hills of San Francisco like a champ. Like, why would you ever drive anything else? And
I know.
if it sucks and it breaks my heart too, Justin. But man, if this is what it takes to get the millions of people to realize that's the right drivetrain, and then if we can just get that battery cost down and the density up, and suddenly, hopefully transition those assembly lines that are EREV quickly into BEV. But in the meantime, the Rivians of the world, Rivian's just got to get profitable, man. I hope R2 does it. I root for Lucid, and I hope that they're midsize, because Gravity is an amazing engineering marvel, but it's not the mass. It's another $100,000 seller. I mean, as great as Tesla is, they've never sold 100,000 volume of any of their $100,000 cars. Like the Cybertruck hasn't, and I'm talking in a single year. No single year has sold 100,000 of Cybertruck, Model S, Model X ever.
Legacy shouldn't expect any different. If Tesla can't do it, they can't for sure on an EV.
Yeah, that's not, you've got to scale it. You got to get the price down. It's
you know what they sold $1 million of?
Model 3,
$40,000 EV,
Yep. And Ford, that's their focus. Their focus is that in not to have a pun there, Ford Focus. That's their thing, is in 2027 to have the smaller, affordable, using CATL LFP packs. I hope they crush it. And then they're also gonna, they know they're not gonna do the volume they originally thought of all the different EVs. So they're gonna have these EREVs. I'm hoping it's set up so they can quickly transition to full BEV when it's the right time.
And hopefully they can escape the Chinese competition.
I love it. Yeah, they got to be a maverick, right? It's sometimes it takes being a bit of a ranger to get out there. And
you got to be that wild Mustang out there, just setting yourself apart.
You do, man, like a wild Bronco, just bucking the trends. I hope that
Forest this thing out.
Absolutely, man.
The best car ever. Taurus wagon.
Oh, this is great, man. Man, we've gone on here. Justin, do you have any final thoughts before we wrap up the episode? I love talking to you all the time, man. It's so much fun.
No, it's just exciting. It is exciting times. There are some things that I'm disappointed about, but people, if they can just have an open mind, put personal griefs aside, I think you're going to see the quickest expansion in autonomous driving you've ever seen, now that Tesla is a serious player in this space.
I think it's going to change everything. I agree. Where can people find you, man? Where can people find the videos that you've done, your trip to the Arctic, your recent stuff with the RoboTaxi, even your last one, the Cybercab launch that you had? Like, where can they find all this?
Yeah, on YouTube, Bearded Tesla Guy, and on all social media at Bearded Tesla.
We'll get you linked into our description as well. Of course, check out Bo Family EV. Not nearly as large or as cool as the Bearded Tesla Guy, but nonetheless, help a brother out. And of course, Turn Down for What podcast, all on YouTube. Like and subscribe, ring that bell. What else are you supposed to say? What are all the cliches, right? Drop a comment, leave a like.
Smash the button.
Smash that button. I got a lot of my personal sphere that hated on the last cover of my image where I was making the wide open mouth face about the empty parking lot where AI generated in a red truck that was covered on the YouTube cover photo. But the things we do for activity. But hey, TDFW is here in your corner, and we'll produce content when we can. And Bo Family V has great content. Bearded Tesla has great content, and with the three of us, you'll be set and ready to go. So,
love it, and that's one of our better videos. If opening your mouth like that is what it takes to get views, Josh, we just need more open mouth. Josh.
It is. The algorithm demands it. Unfortunately, people don't understand that.
That's how Jeremy gets all his views.
We had our very first video ever. Cross 11. It's like over 10,000 views, like 11,000 views, and it's me stacking a Rivian against a Bright Drop, and everybody apparently gels with the Rivian versus Bright Drop. Hey, we'll keep trucking and producing content. But follow along. I've said this multiple times, but we are on Spotify and we're on Apple Podcasts and all the podcasting platforms. We do more on YouTube with EV reviews and some additional things. So if you want to see all of our content, follow us on YouTube.
Thursday Night Live.
Yeah, we have Thursday Night Live, which we do post the next day or hopefully the next day on the listening platforms. But if you want live interaction with Chris, sometimes myself, but oftentimes Martin and Jace, there's a Thursday Night Live that you can literally ask questions and they'll answer for you in real time. But also we have, the weekly episodes. Right now we're actually live on X here on this Tuesday. We'll post it to YouTube and the listening platforms following, but you can interact with us while we're filming this oftentimes on Tuesdays. And, on YouTube, we have a lot of additional content for things. I think we have a couple additional videos coming up in the next couple of weeks that, Chris, you got from the
Act
Expo. So we got a lot of content and on different things, but YouTube's where we have a lot of the specialized content. So follow us anywhere you want to, but if you want to be a part of all of our content, we have different platforms to tune into. So
thanks for joining us, Justin. It's always a pleasure, man. You're inspiring and I love what you do. And really, you're one of the people that got us into this whole, like, hey, dude, like, let's do this. Let's have this conversation. And I appreciate you coming along, being a part of those conversations so many times, man. You're really generous with your time and just not just with us, with the entire community. Kudos to you, man. You're an awesome dude. And there's a whole, it's just a whole lot of people aren't like that. And so I'm really grateful for everything you've done for the show and for us.
Absolutely. I like talking.
Yeah,
love it.
We'll have you back on. You're one of our faves, so we'll have you back on anytime that you have the time to spare to us. But we'll be connecting soon. For today, that is all. We will end up here after an hour and a half and sign off. But thank you again for tuning in to Turn Down for What. Tune in Thursday night for the live feed. Hopefully, I think everybody should be on Thursday. But if not, tune in next week for more EV news and updates. Have a good one, everybody.
Thanks for tuning in to Turn Down for What. Make sure you're subscribed with your notifications on to tune in to more EV news and updates. See you next time.